Well, hey friends, I have found a wonderful resource that I want to share with you. It's a book by watercolorist David Becker called Watercolor Composition Made Easy. And I think that this is an absolutely wonderful resource on composition. I think if I'm ever to write a composition book, I think that I would like for it to resemble this in many ways. I think it's fantastic. So let me just kind of show you a couple of things that I really liked about it. So in the book, it's really comprehensive, and it's almost like a little mini course in composition. And he does handle a lot of information as it relates to sketching and breaking down your image in the context of composition. So that could also be helpful. This is what I like about it, though. Composition is a very complex, sort of subjective in many ways, vague, nebulous. It's kind of like trying to teach somebody how to fall in love. There are some rules and guidelines, but there's so much to talk about. It's such a broad subject, and he does such a nice job of simplifying a lot of these things. Right in one of the first sections of the book, he's got several sketches, and his demonstrations on what these things look like. He provides them for you, and it's wonderful. He starts off with a series of arrangements, compositional arrangements to avoid, and actually has gone through the trouble to sketch them out for you as the reader, and then, and explains why they're not working, what makes them a weak composition, or in some cases like a really terrible composition. And it's so informative, and he will often give you some guidelines on what you could do instead, because we might find ourselves working with this type of situation based on a photo. We've got to be moving some things around. He talks a lot about that. Some other sections go into, he provides so many of his own paintings and describes how these things, how the composition can shift and change from a poor composition to a great composition, and gives you all kinds of samples and demonstrations. He gives you several different photos. I loved this section. He provides you with a series of photos that are often what we do. We take these great snapshots, or we think they're great snapshots, but then we start to work with them in the studio, and we start to kind of hit some roadblocks, and it's all because our compositions are not that great, and sometimes the values are really bad. And he talks about all of these things and gives you suggestions on taking a poorly composed photo, but then sketching it into, a much better layout. We talk about these things when we're working through individual paintings in the demos, but it's kind of nice to have a really concentrated resource on this concept, maybe at your fingertips. He also gives you suggestions on how to paint structures and how to paint trees and how to, do some different things like that. He gives you some information. He does a demo on how to create a completed value sketch, okay? We work on these things and we talk about them, with each painting as we go, but, maybe this would be a nice addition to your, to your library. He goes on to talk more in depth in terms of composition by bringing other elements and principles of design into focus, like perspective and color and, let's see, different things, layers, contrast, contrasting values, negative, positive space. There's a whole section on color, how to establish a value pattern. And you'll, if you're looking at some of this, you'll see similarities in what we're doing in each painting, but this is certainly a more comprehensive, almost like a little mini class, in dealing with some of these things. If you're really looking for those different technical aspects of composition, this is a really good volume. So I just picked up a copy at the library to check it out. You might want to do the same, but I may look at maybe, adding this to my permanent library, but I wanted to let you know about it. Watercolor Composition Made Easy by David Becker. Try to pick one up at the library and see what you think.